الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. The heart is the just reading a bit from the heart. It actually covered this, but we're just going to read it to see if there is something else to say. The heart, and also to just keep the continuity. The heart is a kind of inner the heart is a kind of inner intuition or insight, which insight is obviously intuition inner intuition, insight, same way, literally translating. In the beautiful words of Rumi, feeds on the ray of the sun, bring us into contact with aspects of reality. Feeds on the ray of the sun and brings us into contact with aspects of reality other than those open to sense perception. So heart is here treated by Allah Iqbal as a faculty. Let's dwell a bit on this. So the heart is here treated so sense perception opens up a certain type of reality to us, and the heart is another type of faculty which opens up a certain different aspects of reality which are beyond the reality which is perceived by sense perception. The only thing he wants to stress is that this faculty, which is heart, is as natural as sense perception or our senses and our understanding. And by heart is sort of meaning the faculty of intuition in a Platonic sense, we can say. So the thing which we want to stress here is there are two things here. First is you can say the heart in a limited sense. You mean by it intuition, and people have intuition, and this opens up different aspects of reality. But then you would have to reckon with the Kantian critique of reason's ability to intuit. And if you're saying that it is not reason which intuits, but by heart you mean something else, then you would have to specify it. I don't think he is specifying it here. Because heart, I mean, there is ambiguity ambiguity here in the use of the word heart, because heart, normally you would think that heart is a faculty, but is also meaning by heart here intuition, the actual act of that faculty. So by heart is meaning, or he is implying, or is he referring to supposedly intuitive faculty, the faculty of intuition, if we have. Now, do we have a separate faculty of intuition, or is just the reason which also play the role of intuition? And if it is reason, then you have to reckon with the Kantian critique, and if it is some other intuitive faculty, you haven't specified it. So that's the first point here. And the second thing about the Quranic usage of the word heart or qalb, Quran uses three words: qalb, fuad, and sabr, in a variety of meanings. So you can't. But one of the meaning is center of consciousness. And center of consciousness is, in this sense, the base or the foundation of all our faculties of knowledge, perception, etc. So in this sense of the word, the center of consciousness, heart would also is the foundation of all other faculties. So in this sense, heart would also be, in this sense, the heart would also be the foundation of our sense perception. So it's not as if sense perception is opening up one aspect of reality and heart is another, but it is that even this aspect of reality, which is open to us through sense perception, cannot function without heart as its foundation. And here heart means our center of our overall consciousness. So in a sense, this center of consciousness is our knowledge, is the foundation of knowledge, basis of our knowledge, in the sense that it provides the background of taken for granted information, as well as the background of foundational information, through on the basis of which all our sense perception and everything works. And that's why, in that sense, إذا صلح الجسد كله, in a hadith sharif, when the Prophet says, if it is wholesome, this heart, then the whole everything else is wholesome. So the condition of this heart, its overall being, which is primarily determined by its state of its overall state of consciousness, that will determine even your sense perception, how you perceive the thing. So in the Quranic sense, it's not that heart is just another faculty, but it's alongside sense perception and other faculty, but heart is the very foundation of our knowing and interacting with the world, this world and in any other world. And the conditions of our heart will determine how we perceive reality. And in this sense, heart is the center. By heart we mean center of consciousness. And in that sense, it's not just our way of knowing, but it's also our way of being as well. So these are two important clarifications on this point. Okay, let's go back to the text. And the heart is a kind of intuition or insight which, in the beautiful words of Rumi, feeds on the ray of the sun and bring us into contact with aspects of reality other than those open to sense perception. So here he is taking heart as in a more limited sense of the word. And I'm not saying you can't take heart in that more limited sense of the word, but before that, what we need to say is that heart in a more comprehensive sense of the word is, according to the Quranic sense, the foundation of every aspects of knowing and acting with the world and with the reality. In the beautiful words of Rumi, feeds on the ray of the sun and brings us into contact with aspects of reality other than. We had looked at Rumi's verse, which Iqbal might be referring here, which is which the editor of this work refers to in the footnotes. But let's have a look on this on that verse again and see if, just in view of what we just said, we need to add some other things in it, because in the meantime we had also looked at some other conceptions of intuition in the history of philosophy, for example in Augustine, which might be relevant to us, and that might have changed our understanding. Okay, so this is the Rumi's verse, and there's a Nicholson's translation there. I just copied it from the. So hisse abdan koot zulmat mi khorad. Hisse abdan koot zulmat mi khorad. Hisse jan az aftabe mi charat. So the bodily sense, that's the literal translation of hisse abdan, that its senses. They feed from the kut, food of darkness. And obviously by darkness he means not the material darkness, but the spiritual darkness here, and which includes your distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your sins, etc., and your following of shaitan and his footsteps. Hisse jan as aftabe mi charat, the spiritual sense. Now Maulana Rumi doesn't say the spiritual sense, it just is translation. Hisse jan, the sense of jan can mean soul, jan can mean being, jan can mean life. So that's the your total consciousness in a sense. We can say what Rumi is saying here is the either as they are taking as it one of the senses along with his sabdan, or we can take it as qalb in that sense of the total consciousness. So the sense of the soul, or the sense of the life, or sense of the heart, or feeds, and charad is literally grazes. That's where Urdu word charna, Masdar charna comes from. aftabe, and the sense of the sun, or sense of the soul, feeds or grazes from the sun, not the rays of, just from the sun. But obviously he's not he's not talking about material sun here. He's talking about non-material spiritual sun, or which is the whole spiritual realm, which comes through following, attaching your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as Maulana says in another, dil bahaqban wa birahi Mustafa, attach your heart to the haqq, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and walk on the footsteps of the Mustafa, the Prophet, the beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the aftab he is talking about here is the aftab of haqq and the aftab of the Mustafa. So if you graze it from their rays, the rays of the Sharia and Haqiqah, then your heart will see differently. So here it looks like and when hisse abdan are subservient to hisse jan, then they see the reality as it should be seen. Okay, so the heart is a kind of inner intuition or insight which, in the beautiful words of Ruby, feeds on the ray of the sun and brings us into contact with aspects of reality other than those who have been to sense perception. So both are reference to the Quranic conception of heart, and also our interpretation of Maulana Rumi's verse sort of goes against what Allah Iqbal is saying. It doesn't nullify it, but it's adds complexity to it at this point anyway. Okay, so probably we should stop here and we'll continue from here, inshallah.